Welcome back. We're with the Reverend Kevin Annett, who's joining us today from Europe in France. Is that correct, Kevin?
That's right, Alfred. I'm in Caen in the south of France.
Oh, good. Um, now, a great deal has been happening since your last report, which had to do with a report on the verdicts of the international courts of justice, the common law courts of justice, and it was after the resignation of the prior Pope Benedict, which we have some reason to believe that came about as a result of these verdicts, and also I believe after the appointment of the new Pope Francis, but also after the current Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth Windsor, had been served with the warrants. And now, of course, you're in Europe. You're about to hold a press conference, as I
That's right.
understand it. Yeah.
There's been tremendous developments all over Europe since our involvement in helping force the Pope to resign, and also the new investigation going on about Jorge Bergoglio, the present Pope Francis. In a nutshell, what's happened, let me talk about two things. First of all, the press conference in Italy is happening next Thursday in Savona, Italy. We're working with a group there that is attempting to sue the Pope, bring criminal charges against him. People who have survived rape by priests in Italy have been picketing the Vatican, doing a hunger fast, and they're linking up with us and holding a joint press conference in Savona on May 23rd. But as part of that work, we've also been approached by a number of new groups in Europe, including Holland. And if people go to our website, itccs.org, you'll see a startling interview with a woman, Toos Nieuwenhuis, who is a survivor of child sacrifice and child trafficking network in Holland when she was a child in the 1960s. And that child trafficking network included Prince Bernhard, the grandfather of the present newly crowned King Alexander Wilhelm of Holland. And Prince Bernhard was one of the founders, or not the founders, but one of the main instigators of the Bilderberger group. And she also identified a Catholic Cardinal Elfrink from Holland, and also Lord Louis Mountbatten from England as people involved in this ring. So, these are very startling exposures, and we're very encouraged by this.
Yeah, and so that sounds very much like satanic ritual abuse, which researchers have found is an integral part of the satanic Illuminati networks, and that suggests that the child trafficking networks and the ritual abuse that the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State have found have not been an isolated matter just within the Catholic Church, but rather have been part of what we have called an international war crimes racketeering organization involving the satanic monarchies and bloodline banking families, as well as the far-flung empire of the Catholic Church. Are these findings that you feel are consistent?
Very much, Alfred. The reality here is that we keep getting the same names appearing all the time. We keep getting groups approaching us, one in Holland, one in Switzerland, men who have worked for over 20 years at documenting the ritual sacrifices and child trafficking going on. The same names keep coming up. And so we are definitely hitting different tips of the same iceberg. And what's really encouraging is the fact that when we went public with a lot of our information, the number of hits on our sites have jumped into the hundreds of thousands. And we're going to a whole new level of activity now where eyewitnesses within these cults themselves are beginning to come forward, as we saw in Holland with this woman. So again, I urge people to look at this material, itccs.org, and realize that this is now the time for everyone to come forward with any information they have about these crimes.
Now, what are your plans following the press conferences and following this tour in terms of continuing the citizen courts of justice and the tribunal process, so that justice process and verdicts can come out of this research?
Well, we're launching 2 new common law court actions. As people know, the first common law court decision indicted Joseph Ratzinger and Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the Queen of England, and others for genocide in Canada. But we are now also organizing a common law court in Holland to look into that aspect of the child trafficking. And within Italy, there's also a court action being mounted. So these are springing up all over. And one of the things I'm doing is I've taken the evidence from our first case and we're attempting to have it entered into various European courts of law. It's one of the reasons I'm over here to do that. So, you know, it's all just part of the same process of not only getting verdicts against these people, but looking at ways of enforcing the verdict, performing citizens arrests, seizing this church property, and other things that we've talked about in the first case.
Now, quite apart from the courts of law, has there been any interest from either members of the European Parliament or government officials that are concerned about this level of satanic activity, of abuse activity, etc.?
Very much. We've had a renewed contact from a number of European parliamentarians and politicians in various countries in Europe, and directly as a result of the work, and also because of the fact that last month I was actually nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by scholars in America and Canada, academics who were involved in Native study programs, because of the work I've been doing to expose the genocide in Canada. And when my Nobel nominee announcement went out, we were contacted at that point by especially a group of Italian politicians who I'd been working with 3 years previously, and they renewed their efforts to work with us. So that kind of acknowledgement really goes a long way at increasing, you know, your legitimacy in those circles, at least.
Right. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I happened to be down at a conference in Philadelphia, the Free Your Mind conference, and that was a conference at which whistleblowers from families, from generational families of satanic, Illuminati, ritual abuse. They're kind of the North American branch of what you've been running into both in Canada and in Europe. And these are people, their families, of course, there's been a great legal cases coming out of the Philadelphia diocese. And I was asked down there by some of the people whether the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State will be forming citizens common law courts in the United States to deal with these issues.
Yes, there already is a number of attempts. I was in the United States before I came to Europe. I had actually some really good meetings and interviews in New York City of groups that want to start that process in America. About a third of our citizen jurors in the first case did come from the United States, especially the southern states. And we are actually working now with the Oath Keepers, who are active duty military and police personnel who have taken a public oath to defend the Constitution over and against the government if they attempt to use them in a repressive capacity with American citizens. So we are working with the Oath Keepers, with local sheriffs who are willing to enforce the arrest warrants brought in by our common law courts. This is a very important step forward because it creates an enforcement arm for our common law courts.
Right. Now, at this stage, what would you recommend to people in the U.S. Who would like to become involved and would like to support your process?
Well, understand, first of all, that in American law, they have even more of a basis for taking this action than in Canada, where common law is actively persecuted, and that's the only word I can think of when it has to do with the Crown courts. In America, there have been legal decisions time and again which recognize the right of citizens to take action on their own behalf when the courts and the government are undermining those rights. So I would say do that research. Contact us at hiddenfromhistory1@gmail.com, and we will actively help you build those courts. I'm on U.S. speaking tour again in the fall, so I can come to your communities and help with that. And also, we're producing a common law manual for how to establish common law courts that we hope to have up at itccs.org fairly soon.
Now, what dates do you plan to have the legal proceedings in Italy through the common law courts? What dates do you plan those to go forward?
I'm going on some exploratory mission to Italy this month. I'm coming back in the fall, in September and October, to Europe, and so we're looking at dates in September, possibly early October, especially in Italy for the convening of those.
What has been the early feedback from your networks and your witnesses and your contacts as to what the attitude and activities and general actions of the incoming Pope, Francis I, with regard to child trafficking, childhood sexual abuse, etc., by the worldwide network of the Roman Catholic Church?
Well, the Vatican today is doing a very impressive spin campaign to make it look like the Pope is this man of the people. He wants to reform the church. In fact, he's set up a commission to talk about papal reform, which is really an oxymoron. You can't reform an institution like the Catholic Church. That's being proven in practice. What he's doing at the same time is doing his best to silence his critics. There are a number of American bishops and Irish bishops who are talking openly of splitting from Rome, partly because of the financial crisis, the insolvency of the Vatican Bank, and they're concerned about their assets, naturally. But what's clear is that there's a number of priests from Argentina that are coming out now and describing in detail Jorge Bergoglio's role in trafficking the children of political prisoners under the Argentine junta during the Dirty War. He also helped obtain Exocet missiles for the junta, and he went from being a priest to the head of the entire Argentine church in about 15 years. That was his payoff. So all of this stuff is coming out now, and a lot of this rigmarole he's doing now, this public relations campaign to look impressive, it's really a smokescreen to hide more and more of this truth that is coming out. So, we'll get more of these gestures on the part of the Vatican to make it seem like he's not a criminal. In fact, more and more of the evidence is coming out about his guilt, and he's in fact being named in the forthcoming indictments in the Italian common law courts that we're going to be establishing.
Now, along that vein, when we spoke, you had mentioned that I believe it was in the city of Albany, if that's correct, in the city of Albany, New York. One of the bishops there, I believe of perhaps a conservative Catholic rite, had been arrested for suggesting to his parishioners from the pulpit that they withdraw their support of the Vatican. Could you go more into detail of that case?
That's right. His name was Bishop Timotheus. He's it was actually a church near Albany, not in Albany itself. But he did attempt to do that from within the church. He was detained and escorted out of the church by the police and charged with disrupting a church service. Now, how a member of the clergy are disrupting their own service by their words is something, I guess, that a judge will have to figure out. But it was clearly the result of what he was advocating, which is that Catholics should not fund the Vatican anymore. And because of their open crimes against children, their policy of deliberately concealing child rape and not telling the police is not simply a criminal conspiracy, but it's an actual act of treason by a member of the American clergy, because they're being told by Rome to break the laws of their own country, to break child protection laws, and commit an enormous crime. So, I mean, he was taking issue with that, and the force of the law came down on him for doing it.
Right. Do you see any further movement that way happening? I mean, is there a serious concern among people with the centralization in the Vatican, with the fact that it is essentially, I'm going to use the word war crimes, because child genocide is a war crime under the Geneva Conventions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And more people are waking up to the fact. I mean, the church hierarchy has known that all along. The big difference now is that bishops are beginning to go to jail over this for the first time in history. William Lynn, a Monsignor in Philadelphia, is serving 3 years in prison for protecting child-raping priests. About a quarter of all the priests in the Philadelphia diocese were involved in child trafficking for over 40 years, and he's going to prison for it. So the Catholic hierarchy knows now that they can face prison terms, and so they're beginning to look after their own skin, if you like, and considering separating or at least moderating their ties to Rome. So we're beginning to see the kind of breakup that happened in the Catholic Church 500 years ago in the Reformation. The difference now is that there's a lot higher stakes. Frankly, the financial collapse of the Vatican Bank, the open evidence of criminal acts, murder, child trafficking, everything by very high officials of the church, and directly concealed by a written order from the Pope. I mean, all of those things people realize they can go to jail for. So if anything, we're going to see more of this. Unfortunately, the churches are a climate of fear and intimidation, and it's hard for clergy to come forward and not immediately face what that Bishop Timotheus did. But we have had more contact from clergy, both Catholic and Protestant clergy, who are working with us now. So it's actually encouraging.
What do you anticipate will be some of the outcomes of the common law courts in Italy coming up now that you'll be announcing?
Well, it's a very intimidating environment in Italy. People can literally be arrested for criticizing the church. Judges can be removed and have been removed for issuing orders against the church. And so, it's really a theocratic police state. But nevertheless, the people who are establishing the common law courts in Italy are definitely looking at the same kind of agenda that we've been pursuing, which is, look, these people should be in jail. They have to be stopped. Their policy has to be stopped of protecting child rapists within their church, and their property and wealth is forfeited to the victims as reparations. So they're very much in line with our program. And if anything, they're also tapping into a great groundswell of opposition to the church that's all through Italian society. September 20th is actually the anniversary of Garibaldi's seizure of the Vatican in the year 1870 and his declaration of the Republic of Italy, where the Vatican was actually banned and disestablished until Mussolini came along. So, this September 20th is an important date, and there's going to be events on that date in Italy.
Right, right. Well, good. If if people want to, what is the best way that people watching this can become involved in this effort at the various levels that they wish to?
Well, do the reading first, itccs.org. We have a TV network now, itccs.tv, and of course the genocide evidence in Canada, hiddennolonger.com. All of the common law case that we presented on genocide in Canada is now up online at itccs.org under the international subsection of the, I'm sorry, it's the International Common Law Court. It says ICLCJ in the masthead. That's where all the evidence is posted. But most importantly, to contact us so that we can work in your community. I will come to your area and help you set up these common law courts. So please write to me, hiddenfromhistory1, like the number 1, hiddenfromhistory1@gmail.com.
Well, Kevin, we thank you for spending this time with us now, and we look forward to your continuing updates, perhaps as the new common law courts get underway in Italy.
Absolutely, Alfred. It's always good talking to you, and you'll be updated as it happens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alfred.
We've been with Kevin Annett, who is the acting secretary of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State. Thank you.